All right, we are live. Shalom. Peace be unto all of you. I want to begin by, of course, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Welcome to the Sanctuary of Saints, where our mission is to develop and mature the children of God while building a self-sustainable community. Though being inside the sanctuary is strictly for the children of God, I encourage all people to listen that they may live, mature, and one day be of service to the Most High through his people. So, again, the purpose of this series is to build up the daughters of Zion, to give wisdom and guidance concerning the issues of life. If you have any questions or comments throughout the lesson, feel free to post them into the clubhouse room and feel free to post them here on YouTube as well. Okay. So, comments, let me go ahead and have them show up. And let me go ahead and set a banner. Please feel free. This is what this series is for. I know a lot of women are, scared to ask questions, or you're embarrassed, or, things of that nature. No, now, if you are not permitted by whoever is your authority to do so, then obviously I understand that. But if you do have questions, if you have comments, if you desire me to address situations or to give wisdom concerning different situations, that is no problem. Okay. And that goes for men and women. Class is important for men as well, so that you can understand women and understand how to deal with them, okay, in a way that is productive. So please, again, feel free throughout this class to ask questions. If I don't deal with them, excuse me, in the moment, then I will when the class concludes. Okay? A lot of times your questions are answered within the course of the class, okay? Or within the time frame of the class. It is a course, I guess. So in the first class, I'm just going to do a recap. We focused on the need for fear of the Most High. That was the first things first. Fear the Most High. And then we got the wisdom and understanding through the scriptures on what proper fear looks like. A lot of times we talk about fearing the Most High tongue in cheek, and we don't have a correct viewpoint as to what that fear looks like practically. And we learned that the true fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It is the beginning of wisdom and understanding. Next, we coupled that with the disconnect between most, we're talking about the daughters of Zion right now, men included too, between most of you all, and that disconnect is your own will. Your own will separates you from truly fearing the Most High. So I encourage you, if you have not saw that first part and you want to follow along in the series, you definitely want to go back and watch the introduction. And then you want to, of course, watch the first class. Okay. So this next class is going to land me back off of it. And most of the classes will, all of the classes actually will build on themselves. Okay. So, like a step case, that's what you should think about this series as. It's a step ladder to get you to virtuoso, if you will, daughter of Zion. That's what this class should do for you. So you have to go from the introduction, you have to watch the first class, and now, of course, you have to listen to this class, which builds on itself. Okay? It's like a staircase that's going up, and then the last step is virtue. Okay. So this next class is going to be that next step, if you will. And it is entitled A Look into the Mirror. A Look into the Mirror. The purpose of the title is self-reflection. Okay? Self-reflection and examination. After you now should have understood the fear of the Most High and understanding that your will is often blockading you from fulfilling His will and fearing Him, now it's time to take a close look inside yourself, daughter of Zion. Okay, let's get the book of Second Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. Second Corinthians 13, verse 5.
Con, this the book of Second Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5. Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith. Prove yourselves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates?
Right. So we want to examine ourselves. We have to, mute up, please, prove our own selves. We have to prove ourselves in this walk, in this faith, specifically you ladies. Examination is key, and it is something that, to be quite frank, we don't like to do, or you all don't like to do. Okay. You have to examine yourself, and then you also have to prove yourself whether you are actually in the faith, unless you be reprobate. Now, what's interesting about that word reprobate, okay, that word reprobate is Strong's G96, and it means unapproved. That's what the word means. Okay, reprobate means unapproved. So you want to make sure you examine yourself on a consistent basis, lest ye be unapproved. Now, the title also plays on the fact that looking in the mirror is what our women do, or what women do in general. Women look in the mirror to examine themselves. You look into the mirror for your hair to make sure it's done just right, your makeup to make sure you put those perfect touches on if you are a woman that does makeup. If you don't, you still are looking in the mirror to make sure all the sleep and crust is out of your eyes. You put lip gloss on, things of that nature. Okay. And you look in the mirror to brush your teeth, so forth and so on. Women, you spend a lot of time looking in the mirror, which is why men are often upset when it's time to go somewhere. We made the dinner reservation for 8 p.m. It's 7:30, and you're still looking in the mirror to get those final touches to make sure your dress is looking just right. And then all of a sudden you say, "Oh, I don't know. This one kind of makes me look fat. Honey, does this dress make me look fat?" Then he tells you it doesn't, because he doesn't want. This is what you do, right? You are in the mirror often. You got the huge mirrors, they call them what, vanities, and then you got the little mirror in your purse. So even after you've looked in the mirror, when you finally get into the car to go somewhere, when you pull up, what do? You take out that little mirror, that little 2, 3 inch mirror, and look into it to make sure that there's no smudges and there's no boogers and things like that. Women are hyperactive when it comes to looking in the mirror. Why? Because they want to be approved. They want to be approved. This is why you would look in the mirror as often as you do. You don't want to be unapproved. Number one, first and foremost, you want to make sure you approve of yourself. You want to make sure that you approve of your own appearance. That's what you want to do. That's why you're looking in the mirror. You want to make sure you like what you see. And if you don't like what you see, then you're going to make changes to it. Or maybe you say, well, no, I can't step out like this. And then the event is just, hey, we're not going. That's all based on what you see when you look into the mirror. I know a lot of you all can relate. All right? Be honest, ladies. You can put in the comments on Clubhouse. Is Are you this kind of woman? Have you done that before? I know a lot of you all, a lot of women might say, well, I'm not vain, and I don't look into the mirror all like that. And some of you all might not be big mirror people, but if this is relatable to you, please let me know if you can understand what I'm talking about, because I don't like to give examples and then they aren't relatable. I feel like they are. Right? Let me know. Okay. So the water, Sister Rose. So this is what we do, or this is what the sisters do. Sisters spend a lot of time looking in the mirror for the purposes of approval. So 1 Corinthians 13 goes into self-examination, lest ye be unapproved. Okay? Self-examination, lest ye be unapproved. How much more so should you look into your spiritual mirror to make sure that you are approved of the Most High? Okay? Just like you look in the physical mirror to examine the flaws, and to make sure that you are presentable, make sure that you are acceptable, is also the same way you should examine yourself with the Most High as often as you do. And this is something that isn't taught: self examination, self reflection on a consistent basis. You wait, most of you sisters, until someone says we have to pull you into a council to examine yourself. You don't examine yourself and your behavior and think about your actions and your words and the effects they have on other people until somebody says, "Hey, sister such and such, we got to holler at you about it." And then when you get into the council, when somebody is speaking to you, then all the feelings and the emotions of, "Oh man, what did I, was it really that bad? And I had no idea that I did this and that it made you feel." I had no, because you have not been self-reflecting. You don't self-reflect. And we're going to get into why that is. So I don't want you guys to hear this and think, well, I have been doing that lately, right? We'll see. We'll see. And then if you have, you should be better at it at the end of this course. Okay. If you haven't, we're going to show you where you can begin because it's paramount. Okay. So now, with that being said, what are you looking for? You know what you're looking for when you look into the physical mirror. All right. You're looking for smudges, make sure your edges are right, make sure the dress is, set correctly, things like that. What would you be looking for in this self examination? The reason why I say most of you all don't truly self examine is because you don't know how. You don't know how to examine yourself thoroughly and to prove yourself, to see if you're acceptable. You haven't been taught by and large how to do that. Okay, this is what we're going to learn today. So it's important to examine your strengths, right, your weaknesses, the things that make you who you are, and where you need to improve. And then you need to follow through making the adjustments, just like you would the physical mirror. If you look into the mirror and, you see that you have crust in your eyes, you can observe that, then you're going to wash your face, rinse it off, for example. Right? If you see that that piece of hair is sticking up and it's out of place, you're going to wipe it down. Just to give you a relatable example, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for an open and honest evaluation of your strengths and your weaknesses, and then where to improve, and then make the adjustment. That's what the baseline is of this examination. Okay. So you really have to look inside yourself to know exactly who you are, where you are, and how you've gotten there. This is a part of the examining process, no matter where you are. in life, whether you are married, whether you are single, whether you are a part of a congregation or a camp, or whether you are solo dolo. This is what examination looks like on a consistent basis. Okay. So I want to get into the reality of why our sisters are the way they are, a lot of them. Okay. And it's going to be, this part of class is going to be um, triggering, if you will. So I want to give you a warning. Okay. I want to give you a fair warning that this is going to be triggering for, many sisters. But I do have to talk about it. I do have to address it. A lot of the pain that you feel inside of the community, a lot of the neglect that a lot of you all have stated that you feel inside of the community, right? The disrespect, the inconsideration, and sometimes flat out outrage that you guys have felt in the community isn't even at all based on what others have done to you inside the community, but they're based off of undealt with, unresolved, painful, traumatic experiences you've gone through in your life. Namely, we're going to get into them: molestation. Right? A lot of the daughters of Zion, unfortunately, in our captivity and in this wicked society, have been molested either by family members or people from daycare, people that are not family members, but especially really within their circle. A lot of our sisters have dealt with molestation. Of course, they've dealt with flat out, I'll use the word grape, okay? Grape. And a lot of our sisters have dealt with domestic violence, okay? These are huge things that have cultivated the culture that you see today when it especially comes to Black and Hispanic. The reason our women are, uh, you know, are the culture of our women is portrayed the way it is. That is a real thing, and I'm not saying all of the daughters of Zion behave that way, but a lot of that, most of it, is due to the traumatic experiences they faced in life. Okay, from a child. Even if it hasn't happened to you directly, a lot of you all have witnessed those things. You've been a witness of the molestation. You've been a witness of the rape at your uncle's hands, right? You've been a witness of the domestic violence, the abuse, right? You've seen your mother slapped and thrown across the room by your dad. You've seen that. And because of those experiences, you have become the woman who you are today. Those experiences create defense mechanisms, like they force you to create defense mechanisms. And oftentimes those defense mechanisms are actually terrible for you, right? So this is the truth and the reality of the situation. The reason why our women are like the way they are is because of the things that they've been through. Okay. Men, this is something that you have to understand, right? About the daughters of Zion. They've been through a lot before they've come into the truth. Okay. And this is what we have to factor in. And I feel like it's not being factored in enough when it is the foundation of what is wrong with the dynamic between our men and our women. These traumatic experiences mold and shape their reality. Okay. It's very, very important to understand. So, again, I know what I'm talking about is a sensitive subject, and they're going to bring up things that could serve as triggers for some of you women, which is why I'm trying to be extremely careful in choosing my words. But it is supposed to bring that up. It's all those feelings and emotions. That's what this class is supposed to bring up so that you can examine, be truly cleansed, and move forward. And a lot of times what our women do is they like to bury the trauma. They don't want to really talk about it. Right? So getting them to open up and say these things. You might be dealing with a wife and you don't know that she got molested when she was 8 years old. And that memory could have been has probably been suppressed, but it still manifests in her lack of trust, in her lack of confidence in you. Though she loves you, she can't totally trust you, for example. And this thing has been suppressed in her mind. She doesn't like to talk about it. She doesn't want to open up about it. She might have even forgot about it. Okay. But these things do have long lasting effects and they ruin relationships, which is why it's important to factor these things in, men, when you're dealing with women. Okay. Go to Matthew chapter 11, verse 28.
Gone. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 11, and verse 28.
Mm-hmm.
Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest.
Right? Come to Christ. That's what Christ is saying this thing. Because even at that time, you got to mute up on Clubhouse. Even at that time, Christ recognized and understood these things. We talked about that in the intro, how the men were dealing with the women, right, and these matters of, fornication. This has always been a thing. Well, I won't say always, right? At least at that time, we had a portion in our time. It was between 40 and 80 years where we were okay doing right in the eyes of the Most High. But by and large, we've had these issues. Okay, so our women have gone through very traumatic experiences that have shaped and molded their reality. Right, and that is something we should not ignore. So Christ says, "Come to Him and lay those things down." Now you actually have to do that. That means you have to pull those memories up, deal with them, cry about them, bring them to the Lord, and ask Him to give you health, to give you restoration. These things are important in the examination process. Right? This is why you see quote unquote masculine sisters, catty sisters, right? Passive aggressive sisters. These experiences have caused them to be self willed, right? It's an internal defense mechanism, as I said before. And then of course, these experiences also cause a warped view of reality because the abuser or those that you've seen being abused, of course, they say, it's all right. We moved past it. It's okay. I had it coming, or she had it coming. We seen these things justified. And so that warps the reality. Nobody's come in and really taught, hey, this is what the situation was. This is why it was wrong. This is who was wrong. This is how it has affected you. Nobody does that. We just see mom get slapped across the room and then, they reconcile a week later. Nobody breaks that down. And you're just like, well, I guess I'm happy that we're okay. And now that becomes normal to you. We slap, we kiss, we make up. But nobody ever goes into, hey, this is what was wrong. This shouldn't be that way. And so now you as a young girl, you are seeing these things and it is shaping and molding your reality and you respond to it in different ways. This is why you see those kinds of women though. Okay? And this is why you are slow to accept correction. You're slow to accept correction because of the warped view that you have about life in general. You're slow to accept it. So I'm not saying you don't accept it. I'm not saying women don't accept correction. Women have a problem with accountability, and women have a problem with accepting and embracing the correction because of these experiences, by and large. They already have censored what they know to be right and what they know to be wrong based off of what they feel about what they've experienced. So now when you come in and try to teach them something new, they don't properly analyze what you're saying. All they're doing is internalizing that you are coming at me. You are coming to hurt me, just like my dad hurt my mom. That's what they internalize. They don't internalize, hey, I'm loving you. I'm just trying to show you, sister, this is what you did wrong. No, they automatically go into that defense mode that you're attacking them. This is through prior experiences. And it doesn't have to be as deep as molestation, right? It can be alcoholism, okay? It can be um, just communications. You can abuse with words as well. You can be abusive with words as well. If you're told you're stupid, right, all the time, and ugly and worthless all the time. Some daughters grow up in that environment, and that shapes and molds their reality. So then when somebody comes to correct them or offer them rebuke, it is internalized as another attack, and I need to defend myself because that's all they've known. Okay. So we do have to understand this is why the sisters, by and large, are slow to accept correction. They're slow to accept rebuke. Okay. And this is why Christ dealt with the woman in John 4 the way that he dealt with her. Even though she was disobedient, never got on the water that he asked her to get, right? And had so many questions about his statements, questioned the man. That's why he dealt patiently with her. He understands what you dealt with 5 men, right? And this is not even your husband. He understands, he understood these things. He factored that in dealing with her. Okay, so there's a way to approach. You have to approach as someone who understands these things. This isn't to excuse the behavior or whatever you're going in to correct the sister for. And I'm mainly talking to the brothers right here. It's not to allow it to slide, but it's it's preparing you for the reality of what she's going to think about what you're saying. So there's a way you should obviously, if you are wise, go about it to yield the best results. Okay. You have to think about it like she's defending against you. Like it's and I know I'm using domestic violence, so it's a terrible analogy, but just for you men, right? You have to, you know, land what you want to land around her guard. Okay. Men, you understand it. So sometimes you have to, if you're in a boxing match and you want to land the correction blow, I'm going to say the blow of correction, right? You see how you have to understand how she's defending. Then sometimes you got to parry left to open her up, and then notice how my hand isn't closed; it's open. Mother with the truth like that. After you've now, I know that this this is how this is actually like a sidebar, but just a wisdom to brothers. This is a wholesome way to deal with a woman that needs to be corrected. Okay, you have to understand she's going to defend herself. Natural instinct. Her natural instinct is to defend because she's had to defend herself her entire life for good reason. For good reason. Not because people have been correcting her, but because people have been disrespecting her and she's been seeing disrespect. She's been seeing the wrong things. She's been actually attacked truthfully, wrongfully so many times. She's been attacked more than she's been corrected. So it's all going to be coming across as an attack when you try and attempt to correct a woman. And instead of us saying, well, these women just can't take accountability and da da da, let's understand why, right? And let's take that into consideration. Men, with that being said, sisters deal with these things differently. Some women deal with it via promiscuity and whoredom. Right? That's why you have a lot of sisters in the thought culture. That's how they are internalized and dealt with the neglect, the abuse, the molestation. They turn out. Okay. And that's why you can't tell them to put no clothes on or anything like that because they are acting out the traumatic experiences they've been through. Okay. For example, some turn to molestation. I mean, Salakia, some turns to uh, promiscuity and whoredom. And even if they aren't full blown streetwalkers, that's why they got 2 and 3 baby dads. Right? And even if they don't got 2 or 3 baby dads, that's how come they choose a terrible man. They don't know how to choose a good one because of the experiences that they've gone through. They haven't really so much seen a good man. They don't know what that's like. So there's levels to the consequences, right? From total sexual deviancy to, man, I made a mistake that I can't take back because it's produced a child. And now you have to just love the child for being a child. But you always know, man, I should not have made that mistake. I should not have done that. Now you have another internal struggle. Loving the child that's produced, all praises to the most high, but then hating dealing with the dad. That you deal these are the effects of your childhood and adolescent and even young adult trauma. And that can be one traumatic experience or it can be 10. It can be one or it can be 100. It doesn't matter. So I don't want you all to qualify and say, well, I haven't really been through that much. Right? All it takes is one undealt traumatic experience can shape you for the rest of your life. This is why it's important to self examine these things, to go back over your life, okay? As often as you look inside the mirror. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 28, but I want you to read it, Aharon, in the ESV. Deuteronomy 28, verse 28 in the ESV.
Con. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 28 in the NSV.
ESV.
Salaki, I thought I said ESV. Con. It reads, "The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of mind."
Right. This is, I chose the ESV because of the language, right? It makes it more plain for us in the context of the lesson. The Lord has put curses on the Israelites, as we all know. And one of those curses is madness and blindness and confusion of mind. And this is the foundation or the catalyst for all disagreements, all gender wars that we are dealing with inside the nation. This is what is going on. However, as it pertains to women, this curse particularly affects more the woman than the man. This curse dealing with the mentality. I read that again.
Con. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 28 in the ESV. The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of mind.
So that's that warped reality that I was talking about. You can't even understand the issue as you should a lot of times. That's the blindness and confusion of the mind. You think like you take the words that people are actually saying to you and then you internalize them in a way to mean something totally different. And we talked about that last week as well. This is what happens. And this affects women more than men. That's why a lot of men say, man, I'm not going to argue with women because they're irrational, right? That's what they mean by that. It's not a fair general statement to make, and brothers have to do a better job because what they really mean by they're not going to argue with them, they mean that they're not going to reason with them, right? Because a lot of women aren't reasonable, and that is because of this curse. Okay? Why are you more susceptible to this curse than a man? Why does it affect you more than it does a man? I'm going to tell you why. Go to First Peter chapter 3, verse 7.
Slocky, you
First
call
Peter
out.
3 and 7. First Peter chapter 3, verse 7.
Con, that's the book of First Peter, chapter 3, and verse 7. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge,
Mhm.
giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel,
As unto the what?
as unto the weaker vessel.
So this is something that the men always emphasize. The woman is the weaker vessel. This is why. So what that's going into, the woman being the weaker vessel, is talking about your mind. Of course, we know that there's a physical difference between us, all right? But this is going into your mind. Your mind is easier to be corrupted and thrown off than a man's mind. And this is because of how he constructed it. He constructed it for you all to be help meets, helpers, and nurturers. Help meets and nurturers to men and children. That's why you are more emotion driven. You are very intuitive. That is the kind of mind the Lord has given the female species. Okay, which is why there are gender roles. That's why gender roles are real because He made us different and He made our brains different. Okay, and specifically, the female is susceptible to, as I said, corruption, right? Being led astray because of how her mind is constructed. This is why Eve had the issue that Eve had. Okay? So now, with that being said, this does not mean that you are less intelligent. It doesn't mean that. It means that you process things differently. You process things according to the way that the Lord intends you to. But when you deal with this curse of your mind, of the Lord afflicting your mind, it is that much more devastating than it is a man because your mind is weaker when it comes to oppression, when it comes to uh, violence. All right. That's how come we didn't take women and children to war. We wanted to protect them and keep them back. They didn't even see war, right? Because even the sight of it will warp their mind to something else that is not natural for them. So we have to recognize this aspect as well. Huh? So this is why that curse affects you more than men. This is why a lot of times we say that you're emotionally unstable. You are. And it's because of these experiences. And you have to look inside yourself and acknowledge what these experiences are. Okay. Go to Psalms 51 and 5.
God, It's the book of Psalms, chapter 51, and verse 5. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me.
So the reason why I went here is because another thing in self-examination that I want you guys to grasp. Examination of your family history is also important because it shapes who you are, obviously. He says, I was shapen in iniquity. Okay. He understood where he came from. Some of your mothers and grandmothers were alcoholics, drug addicts, victims of domestic violence, or the especially the decision maker and the pants wearer, if you will, in the house, the authority. For just throwing out, you've had these examples to look up to in your life, and that has shaped you to be who you are, even if you're not an alcoholic yourself, right? You know, um, there's no there's no moderation that you see in that aspect. Girls' night out gets crazy then, right? And you come back home blackout, and of course that is where you make bad decisions and blame the alcohol. You don't drink 6, 7 days a week, maybe like mama did, but you don't mind having a good drink either. That still shapes and molds you. Mama had 2 or 3 men in rotation to take care of bills and to take care of this and to be friends with that. And you're not a complete whore like mom is, but you're gonna pick Mr. Wrong 9 times out of 10. Okay. And then you'll be an early mother, and then you'll that relationship won't work out. And then you'll wait 5 years and find somebody, but you already now carry baggage. And that's based off of what you saw mom do. Not as bad as mom, but it still will lead to your bad decision or decisions. So these things are key. It's important to examine yourself from the scope of who your family is. Are we prone to violence? Are we prone to to high blood pressure? We'll get to that. Are we prone to alcoholism? Are we prone to having 2 or 3 baby dads before we're 25 years old? These are things that you have to know about yourself because your family is going to shape and mold you, your environment. That's why the scriptures go into training up a child in the way that they should go. Because they're whatever way you teach them, they're not going to depart. That's the issue. It's not just if you train them how they should go, also if you train them how they shouldn't go. That's how they're going to go. They're going in that way. And then it's going to take the Most High in Christ for them to wake up, just like how you did. But we have to actually take that into consideration. You have to take into consideration our family, right? Our living environments. All of these things has shaped the daughters of Zion. Okay. So now with that, many of your grandmothers and your mothers, I have to address this for a reason. They ate, they eat their way through traumatic experiences, stress, right? They eat their way through it. Hence the word soul food, because it's good for their soul. It makes them feel better. That's how come that vanilla ice cream and pecan pie at 12 o'clock after you argue with your man hit different. Like a lot of women internalize their trauma by eating, right? Eating unhealthy, right? And then you say, "Well, I don't eat that much." Right? It's what you eat and when you're eating because your brain does send out signals when you put food inside of it. All right? And those signals can cause you to gain fat. All right? I'm just giving you the basic science of it. I'm not going into detailed specifics and things like that. Right? That can be another class. But this is another thing that our women deal with. So that's why a lot of the daughters of Zion, you'll see them, they're overweight. They're 20 to 30 pounds overweight. And now we say it's normal. And now we call it thick, right? Then you got classifications of thick, right? You got slim, thick, and then all the way to, oh, that's a really it's all being overweight. And that's due to traumatic experiences. So when we talking about looking in the mirror, it can even consist of looking in the physical mirror. I always teach, especially women, that you are a reflection, your shape in particular is a reflection of where you are spiritually and mentally. It's a shape, it's a signal of that. It's a sign of that, okay? Of the care that you take. And then you looking in the mirror and you don't like what you see, but now when you look into the mirror, the the view becomes warped. Well, it's not okay. It's I don't like it, but it's okay, because you know it's big girls, big girls time anyway. I don't want to be looking like them little things. And then all of a sudden you go to extremes. Like I don't want to be no skinny thing anyway. Then it's okay for that to put the extra 20, 30 pounds on because I ain't gonna be one of them string beans. Listen, why are you going to the opposite extreme? As if it's it's what it is. You know what it is, but it's a defense mechanism for I am gaining too much weight. And it's not even about the weight, it's about the reason why you're gaining the weight. That's what I want you guys to focus on. Okay. Out of that point. And if you don't think, well, what does that have to do with, you know, my mental capacity or my spirit? I'll tell you. Okay. I'll tell you. I wrote it down. So, being overweight or obese negatively affects brain function, impacting a range of cognitive abilities like executive function, memory, and processing speed. Okay. Increases the risk like dementia and Alzheimer's. Okay. You can look that up. Okay. That's what being overweight does. It does affect your brain. It affects your brain's ability to process information correctly, to process information timely and correctly, number one, which goes into the point that I've just made previously. Okay. And executive functions too. So it's definitely linked to bad decision making. You being overweight directly correlates to bad decision making, to not understanding reality. It is a thing. And you put all those soul food, that Popeyes, that nice pecan pie, you have that in your refrigerator all the time, right? Even when you're going on a diet, you got little secret stashes, and those are for through your emotions. It's not even about you being hungry, is the thing. You're not doing that because you're hungry. So then once you eat like that, your brain is satisfied. That's how come it wants more. It's not signaling to your body that I'm hungry and need to eat. Is no, I need the high of the sugar. I need the high of the salt. That's what your brain begins to do instead of what it's intended to do. Man, we is losing viewers now. All praises to the Most High. Okay. So with that being said, your brain, the Lord did not create your brain to deal with such traumas and experiences that you've dealt with. Okay. The Lord didn't create it for that, which is why you need to be rewired. Okay. There has to be a rewiring of the way that you think. And that can only be done by looking inside yourself, following these steps to a T. Okay. It's also important, as I gave the food example, to know and understand and examine the things that you desire. What are the things you like to do? Well, I like peach cobbler. Okay, what else? Well, I like to read. Okay, that's good. Oh, now okay, reading is good. I do like to drink though. Okay, you like to drink alcohol. Okay. All right. You have to know the things that you do, that you like to do on a consistent basis. And then you have to weigh, are these things good for you? Have they been helping you progress in life and move forward in your relationship with the Most High? Or have they been a detriment? You have to be real about that. Okay. So after this, after you have been real about your experiences, brought them up, right? You see them in front of you. The next thing is to take accountability to what you have reflected on. And I saw a comment in the chat that I want to read. And it was perfect timing that that comment was made because that leads me to my next step. It says, Sister said, Khan, they also have a hard time being corrected by people who are not living in order themselves. This is the time when you reflect to not worry about lone people. That's the issue. That's the number one issue. There is no real self-reflection because you're worried about who did the thing wrong or who actually is wrong. You're worried about other people instead of correcting yourself. So the next step after you have thought about these things isn't to point the finger and say, well, this person isn't living the way that they should. That's not the next thing to do. And that's a defense mechanism. That doesn't mean that the people that are telling you what to do aren't off. I'm not saying that I'm not even taking the position that the statement is incorrect. I would even take the position that it is correct. The issue is you allow that to be an excuse, right? That's what women do. Well, he's actually doing this over here. So he not even living to what he teaching over there. I don't, so that means I'm not actually wrong then. Because if I'm wrong, then that means you're wrong. And you're living that way. So it just becomes an excuse to continue in the behavior when you look at it from that angle. You look at it from the uh, the angle of the victim, and this is what we have to turn around. We have to transform that train of thought. So the first thing to do after you self-reflected isn't to say the person corrected me, man. If they was just better, then I would be better, right? That's not what you should do as an individual. Again, I'm not talking about whether it's true or not. That's irrelevant in this class. I'm talking about what's under your control. So the next step after you reflect isn't to then point the finger at the abuser. I'm not saying the abuser isn't the abuser. So I want to make sure I separate the two. I'm not saying the person that disrespected you didn't disrespect you. I'm not saying that. We can just let your reality be what it is concerning those situations. But what I need you guys to understand is the accountability angle. Okay. The accountability angle. Read Matthew 7, verse 3 and 4.
Come. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 3 and verse 4. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote of thine eye, and, behold, a beam is in thine own eye?
And that's what happens when you point the finger and say, well, the person that was correcting me, look at what they're doing. That's what Christ is talking about. You're beholding the mote in your brother's eye when you have a beam in yours. People is telling you about the beam, and you like, well, you got this mote over here. Well, you said this. You have to first deal with yourself. And this is what Christ ends up saying. Read.
Gone. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam of thine own eye, and then
Mhm.
shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote of thine brother's eye.
So then it actually refers to you as a hypocrite. See, when some like the thing is, when you know that you're incorrect, or somebody's telling you you're incorrect, and then you're like, but you're incorrect too. That's what this is going into. No, you should be reflecting on how you're incorrect and then acknowledging that and fixing that. And then after you do that and say, yeah, you're right, I've done this and I need to correct myself and blah, 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 blah. And that was a good point. Then you can say, hey, but now that I've cleaned myself up now, I do have to point out that moat that you had. That's the order of operation. It isn't simultaneous. It's not like you guys use it as I said before, a defense mechanism. They're saying something to you, and the only thing you're seeing is what they did though, and what they said wrong though. That's what is an issue within all of it. Yeah? And it's because of the traumatic experiences. But I'm saying that has to change in order for you to grow into a virtuous woman that should be praised, that will be praised, I should say. The virtuous woman that will be praised doesn't internalize that and then point the finger. The virtuous woman that will be praised internalizes that and then says, I accept. Not even, of course, if, accept if it's true correction. And I'm not saying that there isn't things that people point out that are ridiculous. The Holy Spirit will give you discernment on that. Okay. But focus on and look and say, well, even if I don't feel like they're correct, I could have done that better, or I could have not said that, and then they wouldn't have thought what they think about me. You even have to go that far. Remember, I said in my last class, women should actually be wiser than me as far as the application and how to move in conversation because you aren't a physical specimen. You're not, as I said before, movers and shakers. You need the protection. So you actually should be moving with more wisdom, especially when you deal with men. Okay. So you actually should be focused on, okay, even when I'm being corrected by a brother who I feel like is out of order and really don't know the whole story and really doesn't have all the facts together, there's a reason still why he's feeling troubled in his spirit to say this to me. And let me just, uh, for lack of a better term, eat the meat, spit out the bone, and pause for everybody that needs it. Okay. So, with that being said, this is what I'm attempting to teach. It's going to take time to sizzle in your spirit and bring forth fruit. I don't expect you to understand it by the end of this room, but I do expect you to go and work on it. Okay. So now let's get Romans 14 and 12.
Come. It's the book of Romans, chapter 14 and verse 12. So then every one of us shall give account of himself to God.
See that? Every one of you, you're going to give your own account. That's why you shouldn't focus on, but the person should have corrected me. The person, the abuser, the rapist, right? The narcissist, they did this. You can't focus on that because the Lord is going to require of you what you did and what you said in response to that. That's what the Lord is judging you on. Now, of course, the Lord is going to judge the abuser, right? But that's his business. You have to make sure you're right with the Most High, first and foremost. I pray that this is crystal clear and is making sense. Yeah. So go to James chapter 5 and verse 16.
God. Book of James, chapter 5, and verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
Confess your faults one to another,
Mm.
and pray one for another, that ye be, Salakia, that ye may be healed. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much.
So that's a heavy passage of scripture as it pertains to the women. Confess your faults to one another. I just want to focus on that. That requires accountability. That word, that all the there's so many memes about women running away from accountability. Okay, now we've talked about why that is. Right? So it is a real thing. Okay, but we talked about why that is, and that's a sensitive matter. Okay, and that's something that you got to work out within yourself. Right? I'm not here to point out every trigger and everything, but just to give you a guideline on what to be looking at. We know that. But here, it gives you a wisdom. After you're able to do that, the next step is actually confessing your faults. What's so heavy is what this means is there shouldn't be a necessity of Matthew 18. These are steps in progression of wisdom. There were people shouldn't have to come and tell you you have offended them. You should be recognizing that. You should be aware of that all the time. Man, I could have definitely offended that sister. Oh, sister, when I said that over here, I just wanted to make sure you didn't take it the wrong way because, I know it could have came off a little bit like this, but that's what confessing your faults look like. And then that sister could be like, oh, no, sis, I didn't take it that way. And no, you all good. Or you might get, thank you for clarifying that because I did feel a little offended because blah, 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 blah. That's confessing your faults one to another before it's the sister is bubbling with anger at one feast day over something. And then the next feast day, then she say, hey sister, I gotta talk to you about something that's been on my heart because you, the offender, didn't recognize it yourself. Now it becomes a Matthew 18 situation where it didn't have to be a Matthew 18 situation. If you just were circumspect and aware of yourself and in examination mode, looking in the mirror mode. Some of you women, you look into your physical mirror when you leave the house, after you leave the house, right? And then at the event that you go to. Because after you eat, you got to make sure that your makeup is still good and your lipstick. And so you look at the mirror in the event too. Look at the mirror spiritually while you're there in the function too. Examine your behavior, examine what you said while you're there at the event. All right? It's levels to it. Okay, some of you all do self-reflection only after they bring Matthew 18 to you. That means you hadn't been doing enough. A sister comes to you, and then God forbid, really what how it mostly goes, the sister brings it to you, and because you aren't self-aware at all, you become offended. And it's like, how dare the sister be offended that's bringing it to you? You see that? And then it's just a big cat fight, and she said this, and he said, but nobody is taking accountability and then trying to correct their own behavior. Okay, so this is where women have to mature, especially those of you who deem yourselves to be spiritual and commandment keepers. Okay? You should not be 5 and 6 years into the truth and still acting catty. Right? You shouldn't be doing it. Okay. So another way to take accountability is actually listening to others, actually listening to others talk about you. See, women don't like when other women talk about them. Oh, girl, she always got she's saying something about me. What she say? The maturity is to actually listen to what she's saying. Not uh it's not a bad thing. It's not something you should dislike. It's actually a good thing for you to examine yourself. Well, if the sister has something to say about me, what is she saying? And then you hear what the sister has to say, and then you examine yourself with it. You don't say, because I ain't even do that then. That's not the first reaction. No, well, she need to worry about her own self because she got this going on over there, and she's sitting over here talking about me. It's not supposed to be like that. That's wrong. Okay. It should be, well, what does the sister have to say? Oh, she said, I said this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I can see what she means. I did say that, but she definitely took it the wrong way, and I didn't mean it like that. But I can see why she's saying what she's saying, and then you self-correct. Well, since I know that offends her, it probably can offend other people. She doesn't like that how I presented myself here, or let me make the adjustment then. That's how you think about it. That's how you process it. The Lord is going to deal with her regardless, meaning the person talking about you, the Lord is going to deal with them. It's the same situation that I always read. I'm not going to get it now. When David, he's the king, right? And this Benjamite is cursing him as he's leaving, as he's being run out of Israel by Saul. And he's saying, "You're a murderer. You're a bloody man." And he's the king, the anointed. And he says, "The Lord has allowed him to curse me. Let him curse." None of what the guy was saying was true, but the Lord, he's David's mentality was the Lord's allowing him for some reason he's doing it. Let him do it. That should be the mentality. Okay. So when you actually self-reflect, you actually become less offended. When you really self-reflect and you are really looking into that mirror on a consistent basis, as much as you look into the physical mirror, you're less offended by things. Things don't offend you so much. You're not so aggravated and triggered. That's how you know that you have begin to heal from those traumatic experiences. When you can self-reflect and say, "Hey, the way that that sister came at me, or the way she kind of, you know, put what she put in the comment board, that might have offended me in time past, but now I understood why she did it, and I just, I feel bad, and hopefully the Lord works on her." It's a different tone now. You go from a victim mentality to a victor's mentality. That's the mentality that David had. David always had a victor's mentality. He never, even though he was a victim of wrongdoing to the highest degree, trying to, his enemy trying to physically take his life. David never played the victim, though. He never had a victim's mentality, even though he was a victim. So, again, this is not to say that the women aren't victims. You are, but you should not have a victim's mentality. That's that Romans 12 that we talked about. Having a mind that has been transformed. Okay. So now you process the information differently. You rewire your brain, essentially. Okay. So now let's go to Jeremiah 17, verse 10.
God. It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17 and verse 10. I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings.
This is why you have to self reflect. This is why you should be constantly looking in the mirror because the Lord is. He's going to look at you, He's going to examine you, He's going to do the things that I'm telling you, you should do for yourself. And then when he does it, he's going to give to you according to your ways, according to your works. You're going to reap what it is that you sow. So your job is to examine yourself to make sure the reward that you get is the kingdom of heaven and not the judgment of death. That's what your duty and responsibility is. I'm going to read this next scripture because it's in a different translation, okay, to tie that point in. I'm going to read the book of First Corinthians 11 and 31, but it's going to be in the amplified version. Okay. Excuse me, bear with me. Phone's kind of acting up. First Corinthians 11:31, amplified version. And it reads, but if we evaluated and judged ourselves honestly, recognizing our shortcomings and correcting our behavior, we would not be judged. You see that? It's literally what it says in the Amplified version. I chose that version because it actually makes it crystal clear the point that I'm making and the point that Paul is making. If you evaluate, if you looked into the mirror spiritually, your spiritual soul, if you will, as much as you looked into this mirror, that physical mirror, you would not face the judgment of damnation. That's what he's saying. You would not face, even if we just take it to, you know, a lesser degree, you would not face the chastisement that you face. People would not be speaking to you and about you the way that they are. You would not be judged yourself. You wouldn't be judged a busybody. Right? You wouldn't be judged a talebearer. You wouldn't be judged a whore. You wouldn't be judged a female dog. If you self reflected yourself, a lot of the correction and the conversations are canceled. And I'm going to say upwards of 90%. I want to give it a good number. Up to 90% of all of your heartache, trauma, you feel neglected, you don't feel heard, you feel slandered, all of that would be cut by 90% if you follow these steps in this lesson. The other 10% are the outliers, just like the truly like abominable and wicked things that can actually um, you know, be an obstacle for you, a real obstacle that the Lord Himself wants to take you up and over. But most of these things, most of your experiences at this point is self-inflicted. Okay, they're self-inflicted things. So it's very, very important to judge yourself. Make sure you do it. Make sure you look into the mirror on a consistent basis. Okay. Now, after you've done this, then the next step is Psalm 139 and 23. Read that for me. Psalm
Con,
129, or it's like 139 and 23. And you're going to read 23 and 24.
this is the book of Psalms, chapter 139, starting at verse 23.
Mm-hmm.
Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting.
That's what you should be praying. Okay. After you've searched yourself, you want to ask the Lord, Lord, the things that I've missed, search me. Show me those things. Show me those things so that I can correct them before I reap the fruit of what I'm sowing. Before you judge me for that, before you assign me my blessing or my curse based off my actions, show me myself, reveal to me the things that I may have missed as I'm sincerely looking into the mirror. This is that when you ask your significant other, right? Hey, how do I look? Hey, did this make me look fat? Like that's that moment right there for you. You need to ask the Lord to show you the rest of those things that are hidden from even yourself. Because a lot of, like I said, a lot of you all have dealt with things that you've forgotten about because you've suppressed them, but they still are working on you subconsciously and shaping the way that you communicate, uh, specifically. Okay. So again, this should be done as often as you look into the physical mirror. If you so happen to not be a mirror kind of woman, like I said, then just understand it means every day. Go Proverbs 20, Salakia, Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. Proverbs 4, verse 23.
It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, and verse 23. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life.
So this is the conclusion. The point of the matter is to keep your heart. That's why you're examining yourself. That's why you're looking into the mirror with all diligence, because out of it are the issues of life. All those things that you are seeing, your heart is your mind, or specifically the seat of emotions, the part of the mind that deals with emotions. And you seeing these experiences, right? Those out of that seat of emotions come the issues of life. So you have to keep that mind sharp. You have to keep it clear. Okay. Keep it from pollutions and defilements. You have to ask the Lord to filter your mind, because out of it are going to be the issues of life. The issue of why you got into it with that sister, or why you got into it with that brother. Right? It's going to be the issue. Okay. Have a couple of more, and then we're going to close out. Verse 26.
Con, verse 26. Ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established.
See that? Ponder the paths of your feet. So that's that self-reflection. Where have you been? What have I done? What have I went through? What have I experienced that has made me become the kind of woman that I am today, both positive and negative? So now, in conclusion, let's go to James chapter 1 and read verse 22.
Con, this is the book of James, chapter 1, and verse 22. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves.
Read.
For if any be a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass.
Is if you hear this word and you actually don't go and take the steps, right? The word was what? Look into the mirror. You would be likened to somebody who is looking in the mirror. Read.
God, and he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholdeth himself, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was.
That's the issue. If you hear this lesson and you don't follow through with it consistently, you're going to be likened to someone who looked into the mirror, and as soon as you stop looking, you forgot the kind of person you are. Don't do that with this lesson. Okay. Don't look into the mirror one time and then stop and forget what kind of person you are. historically, right? In your past and in your present. So at the end, when all is said and done, all praises to the Most High for those sisters that are edified by the lesson. But I want you all to take this lesson and make it a daily lesson. It should be a daily thing. Okay? Don't be like one that looks into the mirror and then walk away and forget exactly what you saw. With that, I want to give all praise and glory to the Most High. And that concludes class. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, do we have any questions or comments? Let's see. Okay. All praises to the Most High. So again, if you all do have questions in the future, if you think about some, then you can always feel free to reach out to me, mostly via Telegram. If you don't have my personal number, that's a good way to reach out. Um, but you should now be going to do this lesson. That's what you should be doing. Okay. You should be doing this here till that last day, whatever day it is for you. And with that, we're going to give all praise and glory to the Most High. Shalom.